Hello, everybody. I was going to say good morning, but then I realized it really depends upon where you are in the world.
Yeah, hi everybody. It looks like Crow will not be joining us today either, but we are free to continue without him.
Madison, you and I chatted about maybe submitting a CFP to Shmoo, which I
Yes.
believe the CFP closes
Like today.
on today. You want to crank on that? I could spend the rest of my day working on that with you after this meeting if you so desire.
Let's touch base after the meeting, because maybe.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
Does anybody feel inclined to lead this meeting? If not, I'm happy to start going through it, but.
Go on, Madison.
Go for it, Madison.
Perfect.
You are, yeah.
It's the manager
somebody
in
else.
me.
Love it.
So please feel free to mark yourself as here, change the color on your entry. You are attending today. As I said earlier, Crow can't join us. He has a conflict. But do we have any new friends here who want to introduce themselves? Okay, great. Everyone here knows each other. That makes that super easy. Does anybody feel inclined to scribe for us? If not, I'll happily do it. I don't imagine we have too many things to cover today. Cool. I will do that. Do we have any opens to discuss today? I don't see any listed here. I don't know if we know of any that I'm missing.
I don't think we have any.
Perfect. So the open source SIG is under their RFC period. So read through it and give feedback by December 2nd, which is what I believe Friday.
Yep.
Yeah, Friday. I haven't taken a look at this yet. I don't know if other folks in here have, or if anybody has any questions about it, but yeah, it seems like everything we need here, everything we need to review it is here. So if you have questions or anything, feel free to use this issue. It looks like it's already made for this, and give any feedback by Friday. Nice. We talked a little bit in our last meeting about future projects for the group. So there were 3 that were up for consideration. Creating plugins and or other tooling to enable the CVD guides that we've already created. Creating a guide for maintainers on how to actually handle an incident. And creating a CVD guide for open source software consumers. So it seems like we have some activity, at least on this one, though I'm biased because some of the activity is my own for handling incidents. But it doesn't seem like many folks have weighed in elsewhere. So it seems like for now, this is at least the front runner for what our next project will be. So I would encourage everyone to go on these issues, vote, weigh in if you feel strongly one way or the other. And we'll probably, I'll say maybe at the next meeting, be able to vote when we have a little bit more of a quorum and some more feedback on these.
So, sorry, Madison. So do we have to just put a comment there, or is there any vote button? I'm not that familiar with GitHub, to be honest.
So it looks like with the way that these are set up, because these are in issues, there is no like polling or voting. Which if we wanted to do, we could do that in a discussion, but unfortunately, I don't think that exists for you. So yeah, I went and just commented on here and said, this is my vote. But honestly, obviously, I like all 3 of these ideas and I would like to do all 3 of these at some point. But if we're picking, the next one, this one happens to be my choice. That was at least how I gave feedback.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, so that I didn't get any negative feedback for doing it this way, so I'd encourage everyone else to basically do the same. So whichever one you feel strongly about is doing is our next idea. Whatever one we pick from this doesn't immediately nullify the other two ideas. I'm personally hoping we do all three, so it's really just choosing whatever order we want to do them in.
Is I can't remember her name off the top of my head. She works at Apple. The one who was interested in being involved in the incident response.
Is it Emily?
You, Emily. Yes. My brain just totally shut down, and I don't remember what the question that I had about her. So yeah, I guess is there any progress on that? I guess is the question, like the actual implementation of that incident response. Or I guess it's not completely related to what this working group is doing, or am I incorrect?
I don't think I know anything about that project. Does anyone? I feel like I'm missing it.
Context. So sorry, context. Context would be that there was an idea to create an incident response team that the OpenSSF had standing. This was about. Sorry, I'm conflating two things. There was an idea kicking around in the OSSF about an incident response team, so that if some maintainer has some chaos evolve, they could reach out to someone and get help. But then there was also a group that was focused on, or an idea kicking around of like giving open source maintainers a group of people to ask questions about security topics on like office hours sort of thing. And I think that was the thing that Emily was involved in. So I think I conflated those two things, and yeah, my bad.
Okay, so at least the former, I think, is the work that the OSS CERT SIG is now doing, which is a group that sort of spun off of this one. So I think they're covering the former of what you said. I don't know anything about office hours, though, if anybody else knows more information about that.
Yeah, there's a separate group, but I thought it was one of the other working groups that was trying to do kind of a general purpose security office hours, but I was having trouble finding a way to, there's kind of a chicken and egg thing, like how do you make it useful enough that you attract people to it, but then enough people that you attract the experts to it. So I think that's still trying to get off the ground.
Okay.
Hey, Art, welcome.
Hello, hi. Thanks for the URL. Hi, everyone.
Oh, hey, Art.
Hey, hi, Madison. Hey, John.
Okay, unfortunately, I think you joined us at the end, Art, unless there's anything else that we need to talk about. This is all that was on here.
Right on time. Excellent.
Yeah. I mean, so we just had a question, actually, Art, maybe you're perfect for this, about what's going on in the OSS CERT SIG. It's currently under RFC. I know you're involved in that. If you want to give us any updates about where they are.
Yeah, I can do that briefly. Probe, Christopher Robinson, is the point on that. There's been a bunch of work going on. There were three sort of subgroups, three parts to the open source CERT planning document development. Those have all been completed, and I think Probe has wrapped it up into a more or less master plan, which he has a request out. Yes, request for comment. I think you have that's probably the link there.
Yeah.
So if folks have input, now is one of several good times. But my understanding is this is going from the OSS SIG to whether it's Brian might know better, the tag, or some more management level, decision-making level, possibly at some point funding level decisions within OpenSSF and or LF. So we're expecting, it's possible there'll be substantial feedback from someone and there might be revisions to the plan. But check plan drafted and submitted for further review, approval, etc. I'll comment briefly, with a more personal hat on. I think this is appropriate. It's a plan. It's not necessarily here's what the cert will look like and do that directly, which I think is appropriate and fine. I personally had struggled a bit with, are we actually writing down the whole thing, or are we writing down sort of the plan part, and it's a little more plan oriented. Again, totally fine, just a comment. If you're expecting the cert will do the following things, A through Z, I think we're not quite at that step exactly yet. But yeah, I'll stop there, I think. Thanks.
Okay, great. And the period ends this Friday. So if you have
Yes.
feedback, get that in.
Yes. Hey, sorry, can I ask just for a minute too?
Yeah.
There was, I joined in, there was chat about office hours, and I think the question was, somebody had mentioned maybe having these, and no, we couldn't find where that had been offered.
Yeah.
Is that,
there was-
oh yeah, please, yeah. Good.
Yeah, it was that we think that there's another working group somewhere in OpenSSF. We're not sure which, but somebody is working on security themed office hours, we believe.
Yeah.
Or on figuring that out, at least I should say.
Okay, that's not, but that is not, the disclosures working group did not offer that ourselves, I guess.
Yeah, as far as we know, it's
As far
not
as
us.
we know, right, okay,
We think there might
No,
be
yeah,
another
right.
group doing that.
okay.
I also haven't been in any meetings for a very long time because I've been flying all over the world. So this is my first meeting in a long time. So I was just like, all right, what is the state of the world? What have I missed?
Yeah, the state of the world for at least this working group in particular is we are trying to pick our next project idea. So next steps for us is weigh in on these issues about which one you would like to work on next. And we'll go from there, basically. Is there anything else that anybody wants to talk about today, OpenSSF full disclosure wise? If not, I will happily end this meeting early.
I mean, we could transition into the discussion. If Art, you want to hang out, anybody else wants to hang out about potential discussion of the idea of turning the guide into a talk and CFP submission for Shmoo, we could just extend this call into that if you think that's appropriate medicine.
We could do that. I would be surprised if many people wanted to stay for that, but I'll leave
That's
it
totally
open.
fair. I mean, but if yeah, I figured we'd pick Art's brain too while we were while he was here too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Then yeah, for those that don't want to stay, no offense taken at all. Feel free to take your time back. John and I are going to talk about possibilities of presenting the Finder Guide at conferences. So that was something that Crow has brought up before. Basically, if anybody wants to, evangelize the guide or the good work that this working group is doing, please feel free to do that. So that's something that at least John and I have been talking about doing ourselves.
Jonathan, but yes.
Jonathan, yes, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, yeah. Well, thank
Perfect.
you, everybody that is here. I appreciate you coming.
Yeah. So, all right. Shmoo CFP. Let me double check and make sure that I've haven't already missed it. I think it's still open. Sorry, I'm going to transition to getting on my computer. Give me a second. Yeah,
it closes today.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. And they have a couple of tracks. I remember that there was a track that SBOM was originally I remember one of the early talks on SBOM was done at Shmoo, and so there's probably a track where this would be very relevant in. I got to use my smart home automation to turn on all my monitors because I turned them off last night. Yeah. I'm gonna be completely honest, not read the guide. I should probably do that. I wrote a chunk of it, but then stepped away because obviously I was doing a bunch of stuff. Where is my office? Good
You know
Lord.
what? That is actually a good point. So I read through the guide the other day and found a couple of, oops, let's see. I found a couple of issues in it, just the typos and other things just from like formatting issues from moving it around as much as we did. So I made a PR fixing a bunch of those.
Perfect.
Which also I was hoping Crow might be here today. We need to determine how to how to handle that or who accepts those PRs.
Who's
I
the
don't feel
reviewer of
my own.
Yeah, well, that's how it turns into in a lot of small projects. Is some, the person that ends up, if it's small enough and nobody seems to care, you just merge your own thing. But I think waiting for someone to say, just merge your own thing, that's not me, is probably the right thing to do.
Yeah, I will add a link to the PR in our
Good.
notes and share it here.
Thank
and
you.
Use my multiple commits on it because it failed the first check because it wasn't signed, which is not great.
Hey, Art, are you doing Shmoo?
Unlikely.
Okay.
It's always a weekend, right? I think
It's
it's always a weekend.
Friday. I don't know. Yeah, Friday. Yeah, it's Friday. It's usually 2 days, right?
Yeah,
My
I just
brain.
I don't
You're
traditionally
DC based
go
anyways, right?
Yeah, no, I'm near enough, but it's still a trip, and weekend and family don't haven't traditionally worked out well.
I can respect that. Yeah, it's the 20th to the 22nd.
Yeah, so again, I'm unlikely. I'm happy to hang out and hear what's going on. I'm probably unlikely, and I probably don't need to count me in as involved in any CFPs or presenting. I mean, if you desperately want me for a panelist or something, I can handle that. But
that's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, just to be clear, I'm interested, but not gonna.
Yeah. So Fast and Furious, meant to entertain, educate, and allow you to drive your point home quickly. Probably not that. One track mind, plenty of presentations, broad technical interest, build it, probably bring it on, right? Which is the open mind to technology and security related topics. So the build it, 50-minute presentations about creating inventive software and hardware solutions. Belay it, 50-minute presentation about cutting edge defensive solutions to current problems. I mean, it could also be belay it or bring it on. And then bring it on is 20 or 50-minute presentations with an open mind, technology and security related topics.
Yeah, I mean, I'd also probably argue that we could easily fit this in the Fast and the Furious, if I'm being honest. Like what we're presenting is like a best practice, right?
That's
and is a
fair.
Educational.
Yes. I don't know how entertaining we can be. I don't know.
I have full faith that we can make this very entertaining. That is not a concern.
Yes. I think that 10 minutes is a very short amount of time to cram 2 speakers into, though.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I recorded something for the CVE podcast yesterday, actually about the Finder guide, which I was going to wait to share once it was actually public. But I presented the whole guide to them, and probably took me maybe about a half an hour. I could probably do it in about 20 minutes, but yeah, I think I agree that 10 is maybe not enough.
Yeah. All right, is there
go ahead.
Like, what are the I think starting with like, what are the points we want to make? Or is there a story we want to tell, or are there points we want to make, or both? Probably both.
I mean, I think with presenting this guide at a conference, we want to share really what's in it, and really just its existence, right? For more generally.
Well, you just start it with a story, though, right? Like, hey, let's start with the story or the premise of, I have found a vulnerability. It's really bad, right? Like, and I need to make sure the maintainers are aware of it, right? Like, because the most compelling talks are going to have to tell a story, right?
Yeah.
So. Well, but that doesn't mean that's not necessarily something that you want to. Well, you kind of want to encode it in the CFP. Okay.
Well, so I guess maybe going back a step too, aside from just ShmooCon, are there other places that we think something like this would make sense to present?
Yes.
I know I don't think we presented this guide at any OpenSSF summits this year.
Right. I think that
So I don't
that's
know.
like, that seems like a very relevant location to toss it to first, or not first, but like in a general sense, like also throwing it at those talks. Brian, what's the I'm hoping, Brian, you're the right person to ask. What is the relationship with the OpenSSF working groups and getting talks accepted to the Linux Foundation / OSSF event conferences?
No formal connection. Being a contributing working group member doesn't guarantee you any position. It still has to go through the CFP. We have at a couple of events put together an OpenSSF Day, which is a more hand-curated collection of content. And for that, we've tended to be more proactive in going out to the community and asking who wants to talk and like trying to program it a little bit more top-down rather than through a bottoms-up CFP. So
Yep.
if we do that, then there might be a chance to get something more directly in, as part of the OpenSSF story. But that's if we do an OpenSSF Day at a given event. Otherwise, it's just everyone goes through the same front door.
Perfect. Figured as much. Just wanted to make sure. Okay. Title of presentation. I found a critical vulnerability. Now what?
Oh, so is there anything else maybe more at a high level that we want to talk about, like presenting the work that we're doing on this more before, like, while we have a bit of a group here? I don't know if it's, I don't know, maybe it is. I don't know if it'd be very valuable for everybody on the call to sit here and go through like making the actual presentation itself. But I would also expect whatever presentation that we could create from this, we'd share with the rest of the group. And in my mind,
I mean,
it'd be great to, have a general presentation that we can all pull from.
Right. I mean, the idea is like, this is a resource. The CFP sort of text is something like, for my talk that I've been giving around the world, I just have a basic, like, abstract, but I just like, oh, this abstract needs to be only 140 characters. All right, well, now I got to cram it into like, less sort of thing. But like, having a basic template of like, this is a bunch of the words that we've written already. You can craft it if you want to tell this story somewhere else. Yeah, I think that's turning it into a resource is a good thing.
Yeah.
Is there, Madison, do you have permission to create a doc in a place that is owned by the LF and not by one of us fools?
That's a good question. I don't think I do.
Brian, do you have that permission?
I'm sure I can track it down. Can you send me a note to remind me?
Oh, I mean, I was hoping something like more immediate, but yes, that's fine. We can do that. We can always copy and paste whatever we got whenever we get it. But yes, I will send you a Slack DM.
Thanks.
Much appreciated. Let's see. FP. I mean, all else fails. We can always take a document and throw it into Google or GitHub eventually, but like that's not really good for active development.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, Madison, do you have the time today to kick on this and like try to get a CFP together before the end of the day, or is this like, I mean, this is a tight deadline. As we do.
Yeah, I-
ADHD thrown into the last minute. At least my brain.
Yeah, it's, I mean, it's more so just like holidays and traveling. I'm happy to work on something like this async throughout the day.
Yep.
And we can maybe sync up at like the end of the day. It might work.
Okay. All right. Anybody else want to contribute to the CFP submission process who's in this call, or has everybody else got a day that they need to execute on?
Yeah, no, I'm out, but a quick higher level question. I have not been attending this working group for a while, but do we consider the guide and or guides as sort of finished or finished enough to point people to? I think Jonathan, you said you've been speaking perhaps about or to them.
No. I've been speaking about it. No, my talk has been very different. The talk that I've been giving is titled "Scaling the Security Researcher to Eliminate Open Source Security Vulnerabilities Once and for All," which is the one I've been giving all over the world. This is not this guide.
Okay, got it. All right. So do we consider the guide or guides again? Is it reasonable to point people at them, or is it not quite time yet? Like as in like, hey, go do this.
That was
if
the
nothing else.
idea.
Right.
I was under the impression that they were in a finalized enough state that this working group had moved on to other things.
Yes. I'm under the same impression. So just because I've been talking about the guide to people externally, which is why I went through it and made that PR, and we'll probably be suggesting more changes as we go. So I think it's final enough to share, but also, I mean, it's a live living document and we can update, as new information comes out or, whatever. But I think it's in enough state that it's, fair to share.
No, good enough. Thanks. That's what I was sort of looking for. That was my impression, but it's been, again, I hadn't been paying attention for a while. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, we're in the process now of picking the next project.
Yep. Got it. Yep. Okay, I think with that, I'm going to run. I have an insane day of silliness. So good talking to everyone. Take care. Yeah, see ya.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm also leaving, so enjoy the day. Bye.
Thank you
for coming. Go ahead, Randall.
I added the linter that we've been using across all of our repos on there. So that cleans up a lot, just so you know, which is 42, which is the one before yours, which is 43.
Oh, okay, perfect.
So just because also realize if you do pull that down, you can run just like a npm run format, and I've like made it where it'll just automatically format everything for you.
Oh, nice. Okay, that is very good to know. So we need to get that one reviewed and approved as well.
Yeah, and that will also review any new contributions to the guide, so that it all follows the default markdown lint rules. They can be configured if you want to. You could just hit me up and I can help you configure them. But yeah.
Okay, great.
Every group kind of has their own thing, so
yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, and I'm more than willing to help with the guide. I will be around. I'm doing some other stuff with plans and SKF and stuff, but I will be around should you need my help.
Okay, perfect. No, I appreciate that. That's very good to know. I think, do we have a process for PRs and feedback? I assume not. Which is why when I made mine, I didn't know, is there somebody that we should add as a reviewer? How do we decide what actually gets approved? Does Crobe just unanimously do this?
I think that Crobe is right now the gatekeeper per se.
Yeah.
I'm gonna drop a link into here we go. Here's the document that I paste. Can I paste? I can paste. There we go. Okay. So I pasted the link to the document in the working group notes.
Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. So yeah, anybody welcome to contribute to it. I'll be on and off of it throughout the day. And we'll see if we can get something done today. And if not, obviously we can still continue and reuse this for other conferences where we might want to evangelize the same thing. And just because we want to and are talking about the Finder report, because that happens to be the most recent work that we've done, we by no means are also stuck with that, right? We can also talk about the maintainer guide and other things that the working group has done.
What I guess the only thing that I would love feedback on is because titles are hard. I'm just saying, like, I'm trying to beat clickbaity because that's what every good title is. And I came up with, so you found a security vulnerability, now what? Does anybody else have any suggestions? Is that a good title, a bad title, a horrendous title, doesn't make any sense? Or do we want something that's more specific to the vulnerability guide? Or I don't know. I mean, we're going to cover that we're going to talk about the guide in the abstract, obviously, which is going to again end up what people read. But you want to get people to click on the link to actually read it to begin with. So if anybody has a better name, I'm all ears, and welcome to feedback or suggestions. Bueller.
I don't have any offhand, but again, I mean, that sounds fine. I'll think about it more throughout the day and hopefully be able to give you more actual feedback, but I don't have anything offhand.
I would almost add the word, so you think you found a security vulnerability.
Oh,
that's
all right. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah,
that's fair.
my presenter name, and then you're like putting title on your presenter name. It's like my title and who I'm working for is going to shift very radically between now and Shmoo. So which one do I put who I am now, or do I put who I'm going to be then? Who I'm going to be then is not yet public yet. So
I think you put whatever title you are, one, allowed to share, and two, is relevant for why you're talking about this and why people should listen to you.
That's fair. First ever Dan Kaminsky Fellow, because I will still have been the first ever Dan Kaminsky Fellow even after the fellowship ends. And security researcher, which is also very relevant. Yeah. Oh, I hate this too. Bios are limited to 100 words, which means 50 words each. Do you have a I presume you've spoken at conferences, so you have a bio, but I just shortened mine so much. Actually, I do already have a 50-word bio for Shmoo because I already submitted a CFP earlier for a different talk.
We can do the bios later.
Right.
While we still have other people in the call, can focus on what we actually would want other people's feedback on, which is not our bios.
Good call. That's very fair. That's very, very fair. Anybody who's read the guide, because as soon as I get off this call, my plan is to read the guide. Is there anything in particular that, for the people that have read the guide, that we want to make sure we highlight specifically? And I will write down some bullet points on that.
I think we want to highlight that there are a number of options available, right? Which is like part of the problem is that you don't know what to do, but you could also do a lot of different things, right? Once you think you found this information. So I think one of the benefits of the guide is that it does highlight all of the different options. I mean, obviously we give our preference, right? Our opinion of here's the way that we think that you should do this, but there are a lot of options. I think it's important to emphasize that, right? Because vulnerability disclosure isn't a one-stop shop, one solution fits all, which is why it's hard.
Definitely agree with that.
And so for me personally too, when I was recording this podcast yesterday about this guide, one of the things that I like to say and that I like to really, really reiterate is that vulnerability disclosure is a human process. There are humans involved. There are different motivations. There are emotions, right? There are a lot of human parts of this process that can cause it to go well or degrade. So I think just also reminding people, especially like in an abstract too, that this is a human process could be helpful and is something that we would talk about.
I also can't remember if it's in this guide or one of the other guides that we have, or I've read a lot of guides. But there's also a level of setting expectations. So like if you don't get a response, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're being ignored.
Oh yeah. We definitely talk about that a lot in here. That's a really good point too, that we could see if we can find a way to highlight that.
That's a heinous point of view, but you're not wrong. I just hate it. I hate it. I hate it for its truth.
I'm a packager, so this is I've been a part of many holy wars where this was the cause of crusade number 236.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I said yesterday is that like as a reporter, one of the things that you can do to help yourself the most throughout the process is to set your expectations upfront early and often.
Yes. Put your disclosure policy in the beginning. Have a disclosure policy and
on that same token, this is based off of some of the discovery that I did for the cert. Like a lot of projects in the general like Linux ecosystem use this as an excuse to fix things in isolation, which can get really aggravating for certain projects as well. So there's kind of a level there where like you don't want to like go all the way, or don't make assumptions is another one. Like just don't assume that like you're going to be ignored either just because you're not getting a response, or like it's not important, and then you do something that causes or aggravates the problem that much more.
Sorry, say that last bit again. I caught that, like, you might aggravate the problem more. What was the thing that can aggravate the problem a bit more? I missed a little.
That trying to solve the problem in isolation. Too many people solving the same problem in isolation, trying to push different results forward, can become a huge problem in the packaging ecosystem. And I'm assuming in just about any ecosystem.
Interesting.
I deal a lot with Gentoo where patches are very common. Like it's very common to have a lot of people like just do your own patch, or like I found this pull request and it works for me. And then one day we actually kind of got this open letter that wasn't directly like sent to us, but kind of was like, oddly like aimed at Gentoo, at the way Gentoo operates, about how like packagers need to not encourage like half-baked results and fixing things in isolation, because when you combine all of these factors, you create a bunch of problems, security being one of those, because those PRs are not tested sometimes, and sometimes they sit there for years.
You're saying that specific organizations, so because like each distro of a Linux operating system might individually patch a piece of software that they're including.
It depends, and Brian will have insight on this because I'm pretty sure he knows Apache has this problem. Like Debian will quote unquote fix problems, which sometimes are fixes, but sometimes are also not really fixes. Like they're called Debianisms, I think is like the actual Debian term, where like they do things because Debian has, for example, a certain ideology where like users should be protected by default to a certain degree. And the thing about it is sometimes that goes against the vision of upstream, in the sense that sometimes upstream deliberately like distributes a package a certain way because they want to like or let that choice be on the user. And Debian will do things like, nope, that's not going to work. So we're going to just do our default. So I don't know if you know this, but the HTTPD package of Debian is actually different from every other package that's just, well, it's not drastically different, but it is different.
That's an interesting mentality. I can see the value in it, but I can also see how it causes chaos.
Well, here's why like from my understanding, and this is from a historical perspective, from my understanding, them doing that historically caused problems, and that's where some of these things come from. Because what happened was people went to complain to HTTPD, and they were like, but we didn't make these changes, so why are you coming to us to complain? And you should go to Debian. And then Debian was kind of like, yeah, but you should support this anyway, because this is the sensible default. And they were like, no, not according to us. And that's how you end up getting two different packages.
Well, I
Fascinating.
can share the pain right now trying to use Firefox and some other stuff that's been put in sandboxes on Ubuntu, where things that I needed for like opening local HTML pages become very cumbersome then, and so I have to use the Firefox Teams version of Firefox that installs it locally, unsandboxed or I forget what the sandboxing term for Ubuntu is, but outside of that, the Snap system, sorry, Snaps. So debates between people at the end of the supply chain and further up are perennial and have existed for decades. There's no hard and fast solution to that except just more conversation but any system's going to have to accommodate the fact that stuff does change as it moves through the chain, and it's not always the same HTTPD.
Right.
Whole space of software supply chain stuff that I haven't even considered, and wow, that's a heinous way to it's like surprising the way that our software like time you learn something new like that, you're like, wow, and this all seems to all still work in some chaotic chaos.
If you actually check how some distros like install Firefox, you will cry, because they are patches that were taken from some weird third-party repo, but without them, you just can't install it. So like there are a lot of Firefox installations out there that if I told you they were held together by a stick of gum, yeah, like there's some stuff, man, like that really makes you think, like, where'd you get this stuff? But yeah, Gentoo's one of them that like we have a bunch of patches that in all honesty, I'm not necessarily sure where they all came from. Some of them come from Mozilla, some of them come from other sources, but like in the sake of like supply chain security, yeah. But from what I've seen, and the argument is like Arch does it too. So like, are we really that wrong? Because and then you go to like Debian, and Debian does their own thing too. So then yeah, and Arch has like 5 different installations of Firefox.
That makes sense. Is there anything else that we want to make sure we include in the detailed description of the CFP? So this is what they say. This is the most important part of the description. You do not need to provide detailed information that demonstrate. Oh, you need to provide. You do not need to. You need to provide detailed information that demonstrates your knowledge of the topic and how you will present it to the audience. Do not rely on your abstract to be enough to for the review committee. It isn't.
Yes. Would perhaps mentioning the cert Because a cert kind of is supposed to facilitate this to some degree.
If it's big enough.
I don't know. I would personally feel uncomfortable sharing information about the cert because I don't know where their plans sit yet, right? And what their capabilities will be. Because the first question someone's going to ask is, what can the cert do for me? And I don't think they have fully fleshed
If you'd
that
like
out
me
yet.
to answer that, I can answer that because I did write a good portion of the cert plan, just for the record.
Oh, I mean, is it in a state comfortable enough where we could share that like publicly? You
Pretty
think?
much, because pretty much everyone kind of told us the same. We did an initial discovery to kind of, because the ideology is that we're going to be surveying people and groups to actually get like the full core set of services. However, kind of what I just described was one of the things that came up a lot. So we know that a big part of the cert is going to be facilitating communication between groups. And that's right now, that's going to be like the main focus. So in other words, we're moving away from patching and really taking on additional responsibilities like that. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to like not like, I think one of the things we wanted to do was talk to some of the people involved with some of the bigger incidents and figure out how we could either create a buffer or facilitate communications. A lot of it is in facilitating communications currently.
Interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was involved in the cert early on, but then I got hopefully somebody else from GitHub is there.
And we actually, a lot of it has to do with a conversation we had with Mike McQuaid from Homebrew, who's in GitHub.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So this is basically a my understanding is this is a coordination tooling group, or is it a coordination like
we're
working
actually
group
also
that
working
actually
on rebuilding Vince, so it is a coordination tool because the ideology is that if you found something and you didn't want to report it directly to like the group for whatever reason, you could report it to us, and then what would happen if I get the whole perspective correctly is we would create a vulnerability report. Madison, you were in it's Vince basically.
Yeah, I was part of their first development.
You're on the website. You're on the screenshots.
Yeah, I made them.
What is the current maturity of this working group? Is it just a working group? Is there actually
there is. To be honest with you, reports? To be completely blunt with you, it's basically me, Krobe, Art, and Francis from Google. But we kind of had a large shift in membership lately. So it kind of has come down to myself, Krobe, and Art.
Okay.
So
but what is its functional, I guess, not organizational, what is its functional status?
We have the plan. I mean, pretty much the plan is at this point pretty much finalized because I spent most of yesterday like rewriting it and touching it up. Krobe just needs to go in there and put it all together to present it to the TAC. But yeah, there is still room for improvement on the plan. However, I think that a big portion of it, like it's really hard to establish services without doing like the first part of like actually doing a survey and actually like figuring out like how it's going to all work. And that's one of the things. So like one of the things we've discussed is that it's going to be really hard to have a cert for like groups that we don't have any contact with, or that we just don't have not like signed up for the cert or something along those lines. And we definitely don't want to create another situation where we're going to add another party that's just reporting something else. So I think right now where the plan stands is that section 1 is the majority of the plan, and section 2, which is like creating the actual services and whatnot, that will come after, or like after the surveys and whatnot.
Is it primarily technical, or is it primarily like people actually helping other people get in touch with?
It's the latter. It's people. It's actually all volunteer based. We voted, and it's going to be all volunteer based. So,
LS is not hiring staff to staff a cert.
There's going to be some people, but not I don't think so. Most of it's volunteer based. We might have a little bit of a software budget, if anything, but even the software is not that complicated. And Madison, the reason that we're rebuilding Vince is because basically we can't really use AWS like that. So,
Oh, yeah. I assume that's a whole financial thing in itself.
well, it's because of the fact that like I set it up, I did a demo, and I got called out like 3 times on like, but it's AWS. What about if you want to self-deploy? And it was like, well, yeah. So what we did is I know a lot of JavaScript people. So I know the people in Supabase, they're like a Firebase open source alternative. So basically we made like a proof of concept because it's not that difficult to rebuild, but we would actually probably love your input at some point because yeah, we were talking about even going back to CERT with it and seeing what they think, because we try to build the exact same thing, just not dependent on AWS.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I was previously involved in the cert sig, and then thought others at GitHub might be more suitable to be involved, but I have kind of missed being involved, so I'm happy to help.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that's where the cert is. So basic that, and a lot of that needs to be added to the plan. But as I said, we're a little bit short staffed as of recent, but yeah, making it work.
Yeah. Okay. So sharing information about the cert then is something that makes sense and definitely something we can do.
And I would also say that part of the cert is actually, we have something that on the plan called the security buddy training, which is kind of like, in essence, build your own cert, or like why you should have a cert. So I'm kind of hoping that that'll be like a course that we can even use SKF on maybe. So therefore, like, you know, there's like a centralized place where you can go to learn about like setting up your own cert. But yeah, that is on the plan. That we call it the security buddy training.
Oh,
Is,
nice.
is this like organizations, corporations setting up their own cert, or is this like other? I am confused why someone would just say, yeah, I want to set up a cert, like, you know, that wasn't associated with like the Open Source Security Foundation or something like that.
We follow a lot the first framework, the first cert framework, if you will. And there's 2 types of cert. There's a C cert and a P cert. A C cert, from my understanding, is more of like a corporation thing, because you're going to track the whole corporation's like network and all their usage. A P cert is a product cert that can be set up by pretty much anyone. And even as an open source project, it's probably pretty smart to still have your own P cert.
Yeah, if you want to look up more about the differences between P certs and C certs, you can look at some of the stuff that First has, if that's helpful. There's tons of information about this. The Security Buddy program is particularly interesting. So I'm definitely going to read the RFC and we'll definitely be giving feedback. Art and I used to actually teach a course together about how to set up your own P cert. So that's great. I love this.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I got. I mean, I'm still cleaning up a lot of it, but I'm trying to like roll with the punches. But yeah, pretty much, not to toot my own horn, but I do write most of it. So all I'm saying is, you find misspellings, missed commas, that's definitely me.
Fair.
I'm dyslexic. So yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, I'll definitely try to read through that by Friday and give feedback, because I'm sure I will have feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have a PR with like all the tooling we've considered. But as I said, I think Vince is what we wanted to use, but the problem is the AWS.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I just think in your presentation, like cert should definitely be something that's promoted, because I think that could be a very big deal. I actually think it might unify some people, because I'll say one of the things that Mike said is that they specifically avoid reporting things to certain projects just because certain projects are extremely hostile and they like just want to fight. So that's one of the things that we're going to try to alleviate with the cert. So I think the more vision or focus we have on it, the easier that mission becomes.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I've definitely seen that happen too.
And then
That's
we've also
interesting.
had the conversation of what happens when the maintainer speaks a different language, because that was actually one that we kind of used an example of, because somebody didn't get a response to because the maintainer only spoke Mandarin, and he like got real like abrasive, like started just cussing and being like, you don't care about your effing project and a bunch of stuff. And yeah, so I get it.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool. I think this is at least a good starting point. So
Yep.
Jonathan and I will work on this throughout the day. I mean, obviously more than open to feedback. But I think that's a good general place, at least for things to focus on in a presentation about this.
Yep. All
Very
right,
good.
Madison, you want to catch up at like 4 or 5 o'clock tonight, this afternoon?
Yeah. We can.
You're
yeah.
in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I will toss, well, here, I'll send you my Calendly and then you can put something on your calendar because I can't see your calendar. So
That's fine. I already have yours.
perfect. Great. Awesome. Thank
Okay,
you
cool.
all.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.